The door hissed closed behind me, the airlock whirling with a whine of hydraulics, and the dull echo of my heartbeat as it reverberated off the cold metal walls. My breath condensed in frosty clouds in the near vacuum of space, the stars pinpricks of light against the endless black. The space station was silent, its systems asleep, but I knew that if I turned around now, I'd see her standing there in the threshold of the airlock, just as she had every night since I arrived here on Zenorian. I didn't turn around. The temperature dropped a fraction more, and the suit's heating pads buzzed to life. But it was a futile effort. Cold seeped through my bones, not driven by temperature, but by an icy resolve that left no room for regret or doubt. "Kale," a voice echoed from behind me as if I'd pulled her shadow with me. "Don't leave." I halted mid-step, feeling the weight of her presence settle against the back of my neck like a hand. My mind raced through the options: pretend not to hear her, ignore the warning signs, or face the music one last time. The silence stretched out in the void, and the only sound was the mechanical hum of the station and the thudding of my own heart. I spun around, facing her, my hand rising instinctively to push my visor up, but I caught myself just in time. Through the helmet's translucent material, she was clear as day, a shadow beneath the lights, standing alone and unyielding amidst the sterile surroundings of the station's airlock. Her form was a stark contrast against the metallic backdrop, her skin luminescent under the flickering artificial light. She was clad in an ensemble that seemed half organic, half machine, a weave of metallic scales and synthetic fibers that shimmered with a cold, otherworldly glow. "Kale," she repeated, her voice sharp yet tinged with something I couldn't quite decipher: desperation, fear, or perhaps a desperate plea for understanding. "Can't leave like this." "I already did," I shot back, my voice clipped and tight. "We both know the rules. You said it yourself, no one touches my back." I gestured vaguely behind me, as if the words could physically outline the invisible boundary that had kept us apart from the moment we met. She took a step forward, her shadow elongating across the floor as if she were trying to bridge the chasm between us. "That was never a rule," she countered, her voice suddenly soft, almost pleading. "Not until today." "No?" I challenged, my eyes narrowing behind the visor. "Then what was it?" "A suggestion." "You know what it is," she hissed through gritted teeth, the calm facade cracking at the edges. "You know exactly what this means." I laughed bitterly, a sound that crackled against the helmet's speakers. "Meaning I'm out of line for touching you? Or is it that I've pushed too far?" A silence fell as heavy and thick as the airlock itself, filled only by the whine of mechanisms shifting and the distant hum of the station's systems. Her breath was visible in the cold, forming a ghostly mist that lingered around her mouth. "Either way," she said finally, her voice barely audible above the noise of the station, "you've broken it." I shrugged, forcing my shoulders to loosen against the weight of the suit. "Well, it's a good thing I'm not staying then, isn't it?" The airlock's interior, where lights flickered, casting shadows and revealing the faint outline of her figure in stark relief. Her eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine despite the layers of cold metal between us. "Why now?" she whispered, tilting her head to one side as if studying me like a subject under a microscope. Her fingers twitched at her sides, barely brushing against the synthetic material of her suit, and I knew she was considering every option: a fight, a plea, something else. "Why not?" I countered, my voice steady despite the turbulence in my chest. "We both know this is going to end eventually." Her lips curled into a sharp, bitter smile. "You're running," she accused, her eyes narrowing. "More like I'm walking away before I get dragged into something deeper," I retorted, my gaze steady on hers. "Something neither of us can afford." The airlock's exterior door creaked open with a metallic groan, the sound sharp and jarring against the silence. "It doesn't have to be this way," she said, her voice strained, as if she was fighting back tears or perhaps something more. "Yes, it does," I replied without hesitation, turning my back on her once again. This time, the action felt final. I stepped out into the vast expanse of space, the cold biting at me with a vengeance, but not as fiercely as her words had. "Kale," she began, but I didn't stop to hear what was left unsaid. I activated my jet pack, the thrusters hissing to life with a sharp burst of energy. Cold stars were all around me now, a vast ocean of endless possibilities and untold dangers. The airlock door snapped shut behind me, sealing us off from one another forever. And yet, as I propelled myself further away from Zenorian, I couldn't shake the lingering sensation of her eyes burning into my back, the shadowy imprint of her presence lingering like a ghost. Behind me, in the darkness of space, the station's lights flickered ominously. The last thing I saw before my vision was consumed by the void was the silhouette of the dragon woman, her figure silhouetted against the glowing red emergency lights inside the airlock. She had started to turn away from me when the door closed, but she paused mid-step, as if deciding whether to run after me or to let me go. And then she was gone, swallowed by the darkness. I drifted deeper into the void, the stars dancing before my eyes like 1,000 shards of glass, each one a reflection of the choice I'd made. The silence was deafening, and the cold was biting deep into my soul. But it was better this way, wasn't it? It had to be. The alternative was too dangerous to contemplate. I turned my jetpack slightly to a new trajectory, aiming for the distant twinkling of another star system, somewhere far from Zenorian, where no one could see me or the tears that threatened to fall behind my visor. But as I drifted away from the airlock, something flickered at the edge of my vision, a glint of metal, a shadow moving against the darkness. It was too distant to make out clearly, but it sent a shiver down my spine nonetheless. Was it just an illusion, a trick of the light, or was it something more sinister, perhaps a sign that I hadn't truly escaped? The cold bite of space gnawed at me harder, but the sensation only sharpened my resolve to keep moving forward. There was no turning back now. But as I continued to drift through the void, the shadow behind me grew larger, darker, and then, before I could even process what was happening, a long, serpentine shape emerged from the depths of space, undulating with a fluid grace that sent a shiver through my core. It was slender and scaled, its body elongating as it approached, casting long shadows against the backdrop of distant stars. "Is this what you wanted?" I muttered into the void, the question more to myself than to the approaching presence. A chase, a game of cat and mouse in the darkness? The shadow didn't respond, but it moved closer, the thruster lights illuminating its sleek form with a cold, metallic sheen that gleamed against the obsidian expanse around us. It was faster than anything I had ever seen in space, closing the distance between us at an alarming rate. I increased my thrust, trying to put more distance between us, but it was like trying to run away from a shadow. The closer I got to the stars ahead, the faster the shadow seemed to catch up. And then, just as I reached the threshold of another system, the shadow was upon me, and a long, scaled arm wrapped around my thruster pack, pulling me back towards Zenorian. "No," I gasped, struggling against the grip. "Let go." But it couldn't release me. Body snaked out, wrapping around mine, its cold scales pressing against the metal of my suit. The stars blurred as we were dragged backwards, the dark emptiness of space stretching out ahead of us like an endless void. "Kale," a voice said, barely audible over the rush of air and the whine of my thrusters. It was her again, but this time there was something different in her tone, something that made me pause and reconsider my choice. "We can't continue like this," she murmured, her breath hot against my neck. "Not for long." I turned to face her, and even through the visor, I could see the desperation in her eyes. "Then what do you want?" I hissed back, struggling against the grip that kept us tethered together. She didn't answer immediately, but instead, she let go, letting me drift away once again, this time without the threat of being pulled back. Her shadow receded into the darkness, blending in with the stars that now surrounded us. But as I floated alone once more, I couldn't help but wonder if my actions had truly set us free from each other, if they had only begun a new kind of entanglement, one that would inevitably drag us deeper into the cold, dark void between the stars. And as I continued to drift, the darkness deepened around me, and with it, an ominous sense of foreboding grew. Could she really let me go? Or was this just the beginning of a new confrontation in a place where escape was impossible? The airlock door had already closed behind me, sealing the indoor, perhaps the beginning of something unknown. But as I drifted deeper into the void, the stars stretching out before me like 1,000 glittering eyes, I knew one thing for certain: there would be no rest until we faced this together. And as the first rays of a distant star began to illuminate the dark expanse, casting shadows that hinted at the presence of something lurking in the background, I realized that my decision had only been the start of a much longer journey, one where every step forward would bring us closer to an inevitable truth, or perhaps a confrontation we both feared. But until then, I was alone, adrift in a vast emptiness that seemed to echo with the unanswered questions and unresolved tension between us. And as the stars continued to dance before my eyes, the shadowy presence that had followed me into the void remained just out of reach, waiting for its moment to strike. Was this the end of my escape, or was it merely the beginning of a much darker tale? The darkness swallowed me whole once again, and with it, the uncertainty about what lay ahead. As I floated in a sea of obscurity, my mind clung to remnants of hope, desperately trying to grasp at any shred of light. The silence was deafening, a void where thoughts should be coalescing. It was as if the world itself had paused, waiting for me to make the next move, yet all I could manage was a heavy breath, a whisper of despair. Suddenly, a faint, distant hum began to pierce the darkness. At first, it was barely perceptible, like the flutter of wings in the farthest corner of my mind. Then, slowly, it grew louder, more pronounced, a rhythm that promised something out of the ordinary. It was as if this sound was the key to unlocking a world I had never known existed. I reached out towards the hum, fingers curling into fists, as if physically grabbing onto the vibration. As my grasp tightened, the darkness began to thin, revealing a landscape of strange beauty. Bioluminescent creatures flitted about, casting mesmerizing patterns on an alien terrain that shimmered with ethereal colors I could not begin to describe. Each step forward felt like a monumental task, yet as I pushed through, the hum turned into a melodic symphony, filling me with an inexplicable sense of purpose. The air was cold but invigorating, and for the first time since my escape, I felt a spark of courage ignite within me. Yet, despite this newfound clarity, dread lingered at the edges of my consciousness. Each step towards the source of the hum seemed to bring closer to an unknown that could be as terrifying as it was hopeful. The path before me wound through forests of glowing flora and over cliffs that plunged into abysses unseen. Each vista was a reminder of the profound isolation and the vastness of what awaited. As I approached the heart of the sound, where the melody crescendoed into a vibrant climax, my senses were overwhelmed by an array of stimuli that felt both exhilarating and harrowing. Here, at this nexus, lay an ancient temple, its columns reaching up to meet the swirling mist above. The architecture was alien yet familiar, as if the structure had been crafted from the echoes of my memories. With trepidation, I stepped inside, the interior bathed in a soft glow that illuminated intricate carvings depicting scenes that defied explanation, visions of power and responsibility, danger and salvation interwoven in a narrative I was only beginning to comprehend. The floor was cold underfoot, and the air was thick with an unspoken weight. At the center of the temple stood a pedestal, upon which rested a mirror-like surface that seemed to reflect my deepest fears and desires simultaneously. Approaching cautiously, I gazed into its depths, finding not just a reflection of myself, but the essence of my journey, struggle, my hope, my fear. In that moment, amidst the surreal beauty of this place, I realized that the darkness had been but a test, a crucible through which I was forged. But as the truth began to dawn, another question loomed large: what would happen when the mirror was shattered, or if it was even meant to be shattered at all? The symphony paused for a breath, and the darkness beyond the temple's confines beckoned, reminding me that this sanctuary of clarity was fleeting. The symphony paused for a breath, and the darkness beyond the temple's confines beckoned, reminding me that this sanctuary of clarity was fleeting. The dragon woman, her eyes now filled with a profound concern, turned to look at me. "We must act swiftly," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "If the mirror is shattered, it could unravel the very fabric of the worlds." I nodded, my mind racing. "What do you mean? Will the worlds collapse?" "It's not that simple. The mirror of reflection is the only thing keeping these worlds from merging. If it breaks, the barriers will weaken, and realities will start to bleed into each other," she explained, her gaze locked on mine. "Then, what are we waiting for?" I asked, urgency creeping into my voice. "Let's fix it." She shook her head gently. "It's not something that can be fixed. The mirror must remain unbroken. We need to find another way to stabilize it. That's why you're here, to figure out how to safeguard it without breaking it." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine at the thought of the consequences. If we failed, the price would be immense. "What do you know about the mirror's origins?" I asked, trying to buy some time and clarity. Her eyes held mine as she spoke. "It was created by an ancient race, long since extinct. They believed it could show the truth between worlds, but it also came with a warning. The mirror can only be maintained by two beings, sewn from each world, holding on to opposite ends of the mirror's edge." "So you're one," I said, trying to piece together what she was saying. "I am, and you are the key human protagonist. You hold the other end of the mirror's existence." I felt a sudden pressure in my hands. The edges of the mirror seemed to respond to my touch, as if sensing my connection to it. "Then let's find out what we need to do together," I said, determination setting in. She nodded, and we turned towards the mirror. It pulsed with a faint glow, like a heartbeat struggling against time. "We must find the key to its protection. Legends speak of the Elder Scrolls in the ancient archives of our world." "Let's go then," I replied, my heart pounding. The journey through the temple was eerie, the silence was oppressive, and the air felt thick with hidden secrets. We entered a narrow corridor, filled with ancient inscriptions that seemed to shimmer with otherworldly magic. The dragon woman paused at an intricate pattern on the wall, her fingers tracing it gently. "This is the entrance," she said quietly. "We must be cautious. The archives are guarded by spirits who protect the knowledge." "Can you handle them?" I asked, hoping for reassurance in this unfamiliar place. She smiled faintly. "I was trained to navigate these halls since childhood. Follow me closely." We moved through the passage until we came upon a massive door made of obsidian and steel. The dragon woman approached it, her movements fluid and precise. She placed her hand on an etched symbol that glowed in response, and the door creaked open slowly, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The interior was bathed in an ethereal light, casting shadows on towering shelves filled with ancient scrolls, books, and tomes of various sizes. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and magic. "Stay alert," the dragon woman whispered. "Some of these scrolls contain dangerous information." We ventured deeper into the archives, and I felt a presence nearby, my senses heightened as if the spirits were watching us. Suddenly, the air turned icy cold, and an ethereal figure materialized before you as a spectral guardian with eyes like burning embers. I am here to protect the knowledge, the spirit intoned in a voice that echoed through the chamber. You must prove yourself worthy to see what you seek. The dragon woman stepped forward. I am of the line of guardians who have served this temple for ages, she said confidently. We come in peace and with respect for your duties. Very well, the spirit replied, its form slowly dissipating. But be warned, only those who truly understand the weight of their quest will leave unscathed. With that, the door to the scrolls room opened fully, revealing rows upon rows of ancient documents. The dragon woman and I moved with purpose, scanning the shelves for anything that might help us. Hours passed in intense focus and searching. The texts were labyrinthine in complexity, filled with languages and symbols that seemed indecipherable at first glance. But gradually, a pattern emerged from the chaos. Finally, we found a collection of scrolls bound together by a delicate silver thread. The dragon woman carefully unwrapped them, revealing pages covered in swirling script. This must be it, she murmured, her fingers tracing the words. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed through the chamber, an alarm of sorts. Hurry, the dragon woman urged, her voice tense. We need to find the specific scroll that holds the key. We moved with urgency, frantically searching through the scrolls. The air grew colder, and shadows seemed to take on a life of their own around us. Just as we were about to give up hope, my fingers brushed against something cool and metallic, a small artifact nestled between some scrolls. This is it, I said, holding up the artifact. It was a small mirror-like object with intricate carvings around its edges. The dragon woman's eyes widened. The seal of stability. This must be used to reinforce the main mirror. Suddenly, a voice boomed through the archive, as a stern, commanding presence that made us freeze. You cannot interfere with the natural order, it said, sounding like it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. We are trying to protect what already exists, the dragon woman replied resolutely. We mean no harm. The presence seemed to consider this, the air around us shifting ominously, as if weighing our words. Then, after a pause, a calmness settled over the chamber. Proceed with caution, it said, its voice softening slightly. Your fate is intertwined with that of the mirror now. We will be careful, I said, though my heart was racing with the weight of what we had just uncovered. With the seal of stability in hand, we hurried back through the archives and out into the temple. We emerged into the chamber, where the large mirror of reflection still waited, pulsing softly in the dim light. We need to use the seal now, I said urgently, my hands steady despite the fear knotting in my stomach. It's our only chance. The dragon woman nodded, her expression grim but resolute. She took one end of the mirror's edge, and I placed the seal in my hand, feeling its cool weight against my skin. Together, she said softly, her voice steady. I nodded, placing the seal on the mirror's surface. A warm glow spread from it, enveloping both of us in a protective aura. The mirror shimmered, its surface rippling as if responding to our actions. Then, suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light. The world seemed to bend and twist around us, and when my vision cleared, everything looked different. The mirror's pulse had stabilized, its glow now steady and calming. Did it work? I asked, still reeling from the sensation. The dragon woman nodded slowly. Yes, but only temporarily. We need more permanent solutions. We have to find a way to maintain this balance, I said, my voice firm with determination. As we began to work on finding that solution, I realized just how deeply connected we were. Our fates intertwined by this mirror and the delicate balance of our shared worlds. The dragon woman turned to me, her eyes filled with an unspoken understanding. I believe in you, human protagonist, she said softly, her voice full of trust and something more. Thank you, I replied, my heart swelling with a strange mixture of fear and hope. Thank you for guiding me. We stood there, gazing at the mirror as it hummed softly, holding the weight of two worlds in its surface. The task ahead was monumental, But we were not alone. The dragon woman's unwavering support had given me strength, a sense of shared purpose that made the challenge ahead feel less daunting. As we moved to plan our next steps, I knew we would face more challenges and unknowns. But for now, with each other and the mirror's stabilizing light, we felt the beginnings of a solution forming, even as darkness loomed at the edges of our awareness. But then, just as we were about to dive into more detailed planning, a sudden chill swept through the chamber. The mirror flickered ominously, sending ripples across its surface that seemed to echo a distress signal. The dragon woman's eyes widened in alarm. "What now?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of our quickened breaths. "We need to stabilize it faster," I said urgently, my mind racing. "We can't afford any more glitches." Suddenly, from out of the darkness at the chamber's edge, a figure emerged, spectral guardian from before, but this time it was not alone. A shadowy figure stood beside it, its features indistinct in the dim light, and it seemed to emit an aura of malevolent power. "We are intruders," the spirit said coldly, turning to face us, "and you have interrupted something beyond your control." "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the chill that ran through me. The figure stepped forward, revealing a faint outline that seemed to be a mixture of human and shadow, a doppelganger, but more sinister and otherworldly. "I am the Shadow Broker," it said, its voice icy, "and I am here to claim what was never meant for your keeping." "We only want to protect the mirror," the dragon woman said firmly. "Protection has a price," the Shadow Broker replied with a chilling smile that sent chills down my spine. "And you are now owing a debt." Suddenly, there was an explosion of energy from the mirror itself, sending ripples through the chamber. The seal of stability glowed fiercely, and then abruptly dimmed. It had worked temporarily, but was now faltering. The Shadow Broker stepped closer to the mirror, his shadowy form reaching out with tendrils of darkness that touched the mirror's surface, trying to pull it away from us. "We must stop him," I said, my instincts kicking in. "Together," the dragon woman responded, her voice steady, as she grabbed one side of the seal, its cold metal biting into her palm. I placed my hand on the opposite side, the mirror's surface vibrating under our touch. "Unite!" I shouted, and with a surge of energy, we pushed back against the Shadow Broker's interference. The chamber shook around us, dust motes dancing in the air as we struggled to maintain control over the mirror. The struggle was intense, each pulse from the mirror growing weaker as the Shadow Broker's influence grew stronger. "More power," the dragon woman gritted out through clenched teeth, her eyes locked on the mirror's surface. I focused my remaining energy, pouring everything I had into the seal. The mirror glowed brightly, again, its vibrations stabilizing for a moment before it began to falter once more. Just as I was about to lose hope, an idea struck me. "The scrolls!" I shouted. "There must be a way to strengthen our connection." "We don't have time," she argued, her grip tightening on the seal. "We do," I insisted, my mind racing. "They said the seal was the key, but it might not be the only key." With renewed urgency, we dashed back through the archives, ignoring the protesting spirits, as we searched for any clue that could help us. The air grew colder with each step, and shadows seemed to reach out, almost tangibly. Finally, I spotted a smaller, almost forgotten scroll near the back of one of the shelves, its edges worn, but the writing still intact. "Here!" I shouted, snatching it from the shelf. The script was ancient, but something about the pattern caught my eye. It reminded me of the seal's design, but with added complexity. "Read it," the dragon woman panted beside me, her voice urgent. I unraveled the scroll, my hands trembling as I deciphered the arcane symbols. "It speaks of a binding spell, an ancient enchantment that can solidify the seal's connection to the mirror." "Quickly," she urged, her gaze darting back towards the chamber entrance. I began to recite the words from the scroll, feeling the power resonate through me. The seal pulsed in response, its glow growing steadily stronger as I spoke the words of the spell aloud. Back in the chamber, the shadow broker's influence faltered, giving us a fleeting moment of respite. "It's working," the dragon woman breathed, her grip on the seal tightening as she focused all her energy into maintaining it. The chamber seemed to hold its breath as we continued the ritual, each word pouring out of me with a sense of urgency. The mirror responded, its surface stabilizing gradually but steadily under the new enchantment. The shadow broker's form began to waver, his tendrils of darkness slowly withdrawing from the mirror. He turned to us, eyes narrowing in frustration and anger. "You will pay for this," he hissed, though his grip on the mirror was weakening. "We are not backing down," I declared firmly, my voice steady despite the tension. The dragon woman nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "Not now, nor ever." The shadow broker's form began to dissipate rapidly, the darkness retreating as the seal strengthened under the new enchantment. The mirror's surface stabilized completely, its pulse steady and strong once more. Breathing heavily, we stood side by side, staring at the mirror's now calm surface. "It's done," I said, my voice filled with relief. The dragon woman smiled faintly, her eyes holding a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "We did it." But as we turned to celebrate our victory, a sharp crack echoed through the chamber, a sound both familiar and terrifying. The mirror of reflection, now stable, but under immense strain from our struggle, began to show signs of breaking. "No!" I shouted, my heart clenching in fear. "Not now!" Quickly, the dragon woman urged, her eyes wide with panic. "Find a way to force it further." I scrambled back into the archives, searching frantically for anything that could help. The scrolls whispered cryptic messages, but the time to decipher them was fleeting. Then, from one of the dimmer corners, I spotted another scroll, thighs one small and almost concealed beneath others. It was old and fragile, its edges curling, but something about it felt significant. "Here!" I shouted back into the chamber, my voice urgent. "This might help." The dragon woman's eyes lit up with hope. "Bring it." With shaking hands, I carefully unwrapped the scroll. The script was ancient and cryptic, but I knew instinctively that this was our final chance. "We need to bind the mirror's essence," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We have to stabilize it permanently." I began to recite the words from the new scroll, pouring every ounce of my strength into the binding ritual. The dragon woman focused on maintaining the seal's connection, her voice blending with mine as we worked in unison. The chamber seemed to shimmer, the air crackling with energy as the ancient spells took effect. The mirror's surface glowed brilliantly, its pulse now strong and steady. The cracks that had started to form began to seal themselves, the mirror stabilizing under the enchantments. We held our breaths as the ritual completed, the seal's glow dimming slightly but remaining strong. "It worked," I whispered, my voice shaking with relief. The dragon woman nodded, her eyes shining with tears of joy and relief. "Yes, it did." As the tension faded, the weight of what we had accomplished began to settle in. We had faced danger, uncertainty, and near certain doom, but we had prevailed. The mirror was now protected by a binding spell that would ensure its stability for generations to come. Yet, as we stood there, the reality of our situation hit me hard. The risk was not entirely over. We had to be vigilant, and there were still mysteries that lay ahead, questions about the true nature of the mirror and our fates intertwined with it. "We need to find out more," I said quietly, my voice filled with determination. "This isn't over yet." The dragon woman nodded solemnly. "Agreed. We have a long road ahead, but we face it together." As we stepped back into the temple's dim light, our mission had only just begun. The true mysteries of the mirror and its significance lay ahead, waiting to be unraveled, and with each other by our sides, we felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. But then, as we prepared to delve further into the mysteries, a sudden shift in the atmosphere caught our attention. The temple itself seemed to tremble, and a chill ran down my spine as an ominous voice echoed through the hallways. "You have stabilized the mirror, but your victory is fleeting. it said with a haunting calmness. "There are deeper forces at play that you cannot understand yet. We will face them," I declared firmly, my resolve unwavering. The dragon woman's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "We must be prepared for what comes next. The mirror is stable now, but the real test lies ahead." As we stood there, the air thick with the presence of unseen forces, I knew that this was just the beginning of our true ordeal. The mirror had been stabilized, but the battle for the world's stability, and perhaps even their existence, was far from over. We were not alone in this struggle. Forces both benevolent and malevolent watched us closely. The mirror's stabilizing glow seemed to hold a message. Yet balance between worlds was delicate, and only through our unwavering commitment and unity could we hope to safeguard it for the future. With a final glance at each other, I knew we were ready to face whatever came next. The path ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but with the mirror's newfound stability, and with each other by our side, we felt prepared to confront the challenges that lay ahead. "We're not backing down," I said firmly, my voice echoing through the temple. The dragon woman nodded, a sense of resolve in her eyes. "Together, we will find the answers." And with those words, we set out once more into the darkness, knowing that our journey was far from over. The darkness seemed to envelop us completely as we continued our journey, yet the presence of the dragon woman by my side was a constant source of both warmth and sorrow. She walked silently, her wings brushing against the night air with an ethereal whisper. Despite her strength, there was an undeniable vulnerability in her eyes, a sadness that mirrored my own. Hours passed without a word between us, each step a reminder of the weight we carried. The darkness seemed to deepen as our path led us deeper into the heart of the forbidden lands. It was only when the moon broke through the clouds, casting its pale light on the ruins of what used to be a grand city, that she finally spoke. Here, her voice was barely audible above the rustling leaves and the soft wind that blew through the ancient structures. "This is as far as I can go." I looked at her, her face illuminated by the cold moonlight, and for a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. "Why?" Her gaze was steady, yet there was an unmistakable pain in her eyes. "This was my homeland. I am afraid of what I might find here." I took a deep breath, trying to understand the depth of her emotions. This place was more than just ruins to her. It was a part of who she was, her past, and perhaps her hope. "What do you think y'all find?" Her lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "I don't know, but I need to face it. I need to find closure." Understanding dawned on me. "I'm here for you. We can face it together." She hesitated, looking around at the remnants of a civilization that was now nothing more than broken stones and fading memories. The weight of her decision was clear in her expression. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But this is something I must do alone." Her words stung, but there was a truth in them that I could not deny. "All right," I said softly. "They'll wait for you here." She nodded once, her eyes reflecting the moonlight like silver pools of longing and loss. Before she turned away, there was a moment of shared understanding, a look that spoke of promises unspoken and futures uncertain. Then she walked into the shadows, leaving me standing alone in the ruins. I waited as the minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. The silence was deafening, the darkness pressing in around me, heavy with the weight of unseen stories and untold histories. As I stood there, my thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions: fear for her safety, sorrow for her loss, and hope that she might find peace among the ruins. It was only when the first light of dawn began to paint the sky with hues of pink and gold that I saw her return. She looked different, changed somehow. There was a clarity in her eyes, a resolution I had not seen before. When she approached me, I felt the warmth of her gaze, even though the distance between us seemed vast. "I'm ready now," she said quietly, her voice carrying more strength than it had earlier. I nodded, my heart swelling with an inexplicable mix of pride and sorrow. We had come so far together, Yet this moment marked a turning point where our paths diverged. She was about to step into a future that held both pain and healing, while I prepared to read deeper into the darkness for reasons as undefined and daunting as hers were clear. "Then let's go," I said, my voice steady, but the resolve inside me shaken by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Side by side once more, we began the trek that would take us further into the unknown. The air was crisp with dawn, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere of the night before. Yet, as we walked, there was an unspoken bond between us, a shared understanding of the journey we each faced alone but together. The ruins faded behind us, swallowed by the encroaching light of day. In that moment, as we moved forward, I felt a profound sense of hope intertwining with fear. The path ahead held unknown dangers and challenges, yet also promises of discovery and transformation. As we walked, I felt her breath on my neck, a small, almost imperceptible touch of her wings brushing against me, reminder of the connection that was both physical and emotional. It was a silent affirmation that even as our journeys diverged, a part of each other remained in the shared journey we had begun. And in that moment, as the sun climbed higher into the sky, I knew that though our paths were not fully resolved or clear, the bond between us would endure. A symbol of resilience and hope, it shone like a beacon through the darkness and uncertainties ahead. We walked on, each step a testament to the strength we found within ourselves and the support we offered each other. As we ventured further into the unknown, the promise of what lay ahead filled me with both dread and anticipation. The final rays of sunrise bathed us in a golden glow, casting long shadows that stretched before us. In this moment, there was no need for words to express the depth of our connection or the uncertainty of what lay ahead. And so we continued, side by side, under the watchful eye of the rising sun, carrying the weight of the past and the promise of an uncertain future, all the while holding on to the unspoken bond that bound us together. With a final, silent look from her, she turned to continue on her path alone. The golden light of dawn framed her figure as she walked away, her wings casting intricate shadows on the ground. I watched until she was nothing more than a distant silhouette, then turned to face my own journey. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of both loss and hope. Loss for the moments we shared and hope for the new paths each of us was about to embark upon. The sun rose higher, casting its warm glow over the ruins behind me, a symbol of renewal and new beginnings. And so, our story ends with the horizon stretching before us, golden and full of promise, yet tinged with the sadness of separation. We will carry each other's warmth in our hearts as we venture forward into the unknown, forever bound by the unspoken truths shared under the watchful moonlight. The sun rose higher, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, casting long shadows that stretched before us like a map of our journeys yet to come. The distant silhouette of the dragon woman faded into the light as she walked away, her wings casting intricate shadows on the ground, each step a testament to her resolve. And in this final moment, under the watchful eye of the rising sun, I knew that though our paths had diverged, the bond we shared would endure. A symbol of resilience and hope, it shone like a beacon through the darkness and uncertainties ahead. We walked on, each step a testament to the strength we found within ourselves and the support we offered each other. As we ventured further into the unknown, the promise of what lay ahead filled me with both dread and anticipation. And thus, our story concludes, not with an end, but with the certainty of a future filled with possibilities, held together by the unspoken truths shared under the moonlight and in the darkness. In that final silence, as the golden light of dawn bathed us in its warm embrace, I understood that our paths were now separate, yet forever intertwined. The sun's rays illuminated the horizon before me, casting a long shadow that stretched into the unknown. In that moment, Under the rising sun, the story ended and began anew. Dawn, dawn. The sun began its ascent over the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched across the quiet streets of Havenwood. The early morning light illuminated the dew-covered grass and the glistening leaves of the trees, giving the town a serene and almost ethereal quality. Birds chirped melodically from their perches, as if welcoming the new day with open hearts. Yet, in this tranquil environment, there was an undercurrent of tension that lingered beneath the surface. Eva stood at the edge of the woods, her hands clenched into fists as she watched the sky grow brighter. The night's events had left her shaken, but a resolve hardened within her chest, a determination to uncover the truth about what had transpired in the forest. She turned her gaze away from the sunrise and back toward each path that led deep into the woods, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and courage. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her footsteps making soft crunching sounds on the fallen leaves. The air was cool against her skin, carrying a scent of earth and pine. As she ventured deeper into the forest, the trees grew denser, their branches intertwining overhead to form a canopy that blocked out most of the morning light. Shadows played around her feet, casting an eerie dance upon the path ahead. She recalled the whispers from last night, the faint murmurs carrying the weight of centuries, old secrets and mysteries. The forest seemed almost alive, as if it watched her with silent eyes, keeping silent witness to the secrets hidden within its depths. Each step brought her closer to the heart of the woods, where the stories of her ancestors might finally be revealed. Iva's mind raced with questions. What truths lay buried beneath the leaf-littered ground? Were there answers lurking in the shadows, waiting for someone brave enough to seek them out? The path twisted and turned, leading her deeper into a realm where the lines between reality and myth blurred. As she walked, the sounds of her surroundings changed. Subtly birds ceased their morning songs, replaced by the distant rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. The air grew colder, carrying with it an almost tangible chill that whispered warnings in her mind. Each step seemed to carry more weight than the last, as if the forest itself was testing her resolve. Reaching a clearing, Eva found herself facing a large oak tree that towered over everything else, its bark gnarled and ancient-looking. A plaque attached to one of its sturdy branches caught her attention. It bore an inscription in a language she didn't recognize, but felt deeply connected to nonetheless. Moving closer, she ran her fingers over the smooth surface of the metal, tracing each letter as though they held some kind of hidden message. The words seemed to glow faintly under the dim morning light, echoing through her mind. They spoke of guardianship and sacrifice, of lost truths and future prophecies intertwined with the fate of Havenwood. As she read on, a story began to unfold of a community bound by an oath to protect their land from those who sought to corrupt it, and the price they paid for that protection. With each line, Iva's heart swelled with a sense of duty and responsibility. The weight of her ancestors' legacy settled upon her shoulders, urging her to uncover the full extent of this ancient pact. She knew now that the forest wasn't just a place, it was a guardian, a keeper of secrets waiting to be revealed. As she pulled away from the oak tree, Iva felt a newfound strength coursing through her veins. She understood that her journey was far from over. It had only just begun. Every leaf and every creature in the forest held a piece of the puzzle she needed to solve. Leaving the clearing, she continued deeper into the woods, her steps becoming more determined as she approached her ultimate destination. The path narrowed further, winding its way through dense thickets and over small streams that gurgled softly beside her feet. Each obstacle seemed to challenge her resolve, yet she pushed on, driven by a desire to uncover the truth hidden within these ancient woods. The forest around her pulsed with energy, as if every tree and rock held a piece of history waiting to be discovered. The air grew thick with an inexplicable energy, almost electric in its intensity. It was as though the very essence of Havenwood's past called out to her, urging her onward toward a revelation that could change everything. As Iva ventured further into the heart of the forest, she felt herself becoming more attuned to the subtle energies around her. The forest seemed to respond to her presence, guiding her with an invisible hand toward the very core of its secrets. Each step brought her closer to understanding not just the history of Havenwood, but the deeper truths that lay beneath the surface of everyday life. The path eventually led her to a small, secluded grove surrounded by towering trees and thick underbrush. In the center stood a stone altar covered in vines and moss, its age indiscernible beneath the layers of growth. Around it were scattered ancient artifacts, bones, pottery shards, tools that spoke volumes about the people who had worshipped here long ago. Approaching the altar, Eva noticed an intricate symbol carved into the stone at its base. It resembled a swirling pattern that seemed to pulse with latent energy. As she laid her hand upon it, an overwhelming sensation washed over her, a flood of memories and visions, each more vivid than the last. She saw scenes from ages past, a council of elders gathered around the very altar she now stood before, solemnly pledging their lives to protect Havenwood from those who sought to exploit its natural resources and desecrate its sacred land. She witnessed sacrifices made in battles fought, all for the sake of preserving what they held dear. Through these visions, Iva understood the depth of commitment her ancestors had made. They had sworn to safeguard their home from corruption and greed, no matter the cost. This realization ignited a fierce determination within her, fueling her desire to learn more about the current threats facing Havenwood and how best to confront them. With every new piece of knowledge she absorbed, Iva's resolve only strengthened. She felt a bond forming between herself and the land itself, a connection forged through shared purpose and mutual respect. The forest seemed to embrace her now, its energy flowing into her like living water, renewing and empowering her spirit. As dawn fully broke over the horizon, casting long rays of light through the canopy, Eva realized that her